Former lightweight champion Benson Henderson returns to the octagon after less than a month.
Oh, big shots by Benson.
Now he takes on Brandon Thatch.
This kid is a beast.
Looking to continue his 10-fight win streak. And
Oh my!
Holloway battles Miller.
Hey, Rocky, that's it. This fight's over, man.
UFC Fight Night, Saturday on Fox Sports 1.
Welcome to another edition of Bookie Beatdown, your one-stop shop for all the analysis, advice, and predictions you need to make money in the world of mixed martial arts gambling. I'm Paul Shaughnessy, and joining me as always, we have the only guy I've ever known to stand up a date to watch Thatch Palace fights on SureDog.com.
You know what? It was actually Joe Riggs versus Lewis Taylor Strikeforce Challenger Series, and it was a hot date, man.
It was a hot date.
She doesn't talk to me still to these days. I get her crap in my newsfeed, and now I think to myself, good thing Joe Riggs won that fight, because it would have been a bad night otherwise.
Moral of the story, Cody likes MMA way more than you do. So let's get into the action here. UFC Fight Night 60 goes down this Saturday night from Broomfield, Colorado. And in the main event, Benson "Smooth" Henderson steps up on about 3 weeks' notice to take on Brandon Thatch. Brandon Thatch opened as a minus 170 favorite on this line. And as we get closer to the fight, as we get closer to now, it's a pretty much a pick-em with Thatch a minus 115 favorite. And the comeback on Henderson, minus money as well, minus 105. There's a lot of questions in this fight. It always is, especially when somebody's going up on weight, when somebody's taking a fight on short notice. And on the other side of the spectrum, we've got Brandon Thatch. He's never won a decision in his career.
He's never been out of the second round.
He has been out of the second round once. He lost a split decision early on in his career.
That's his loss, yeah.
That's his only loss, and it was a split decision. But that being said, he's shown that if he doesn't ice you in the first couple rounds, anybody can win. And he's taking on Benson Henderson, the king of stealing close decisions and getting to decision. Now, I know he lost to Rafael dos Anjos. He got knocked out there. Sometimes you just get caught. So there's so many questions around this. Is Benson Henderson ready? Obviously, he fought his buddy Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Maybe a little Cerrone rubbed off on him, taking this fight on short notice. Not a thing that the smooth one usually does. I'm actually leaning a little bit towards Henderson after looking through Thatch's record and all of this. This is the biggest fight of his career. It's really tough to finish Benson Henderson. And on top of that, Henderson taking on Thatch, it's a very similar fight to taking on Cowboy Cerrone.
Well, first of all, he lost that fight against Cowboy Cerrone. So
did
the fact
he go?
that
A lot of people. I had money on Cerrone, so I was happy about it. But most of the people I was watching that fight with were with Benson Henderson.
Well, the thing is, Donald Cerrone, not the biggest lightweight to begin with, even a guy that had talked briefly about going down to 145 pounds. But Brandon Thatch is a big guy. And you're right, he kind of matches up similar with Donald Cerrone, the way they stand, the way that they throw their strikes. The thing that I'm going to take away from Brandon Thatch is that body kick is going to be huge for him. Because we know Donald Cerrone throws it well, but also Anthony Pettis beating Benson Henderson, yes, with an armbar, but just hurting him with that left body kick.
Yep.
That's something Brandon Thatch is really going to be able to draw on. When the line initially dropped, and it was minus 170 Brandon Thatch, I was also leaning towards Benson Henderson. I mean, you're going to get better value on Henderson.
Yep.
But now that the line's becoming
even.
This is, and you made very good mention, there are so many question marks. Not only the jumping up a weight class, not only the, Henderson goes to the decision all the time. Thatch doesn't go to the decision. Henderson's coming up in weight, taking on short notice. Thatch is getting ready. Thatch is from Colorado. He fights in the altitude already. Benson Henderson's got great cardio and trains out of Arizona, which also has altitude.
Thatch was getting ready for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's a karate guy. And before that, then he hurt his foot, he was getting ready for Jordan Meehan, another stand-up fighter, and now he's got Benson Henderson, who's very, very well-rounded. I'd like to see Benson Henderson utilize his wrestling in this fight, because I think that is the key. If he can take him down in the first couple of rounds, drain him out, and over a 5-round fight, I think Benson Henderson gets it done. But
see, that is the key.
He could go out there and get completely iced in the first 2 minutes.
But likewise, people were talking about Donald Cerrone and being like, well, Miles Jury was able to take him down, and, if he avoids that omoplata, maybe he takes him down. You know what? Benson Henderson will just take him down. Didn't even really put any effort. And that's something that really bothers me, is if he tries to fight Brandon Thatch with the exact same game plan that he brought in Donald Cerrone, that's a little bit iffy, it might. But The fact that it's 5 rounds, you have to assume that plays out for Benson Henderson. I mean, yeah, I get that he's taking it short notice. I get that he's going into Thatch's backyard and Thatch is, used to the altitude. But the fact is, that's a grinding pace that he puts on you. This is going to be a stay-away fight because there's just too many questions on it. I don't know what Benson Henderson's mindset is. I don't know if Brendan Thatch has got a wicked game plan together. I don't know if I'm overplaying this body kick. I don't know with the weight class jump. There's so many I don't know.
Does size matter at the end?
So normally what I would do, I would say, okay, you know what, Brendan Thatch is minus 170. The comeback on Benson Henderson's plus 145. It's a pick'em. I'll go with the plus 145. But the fact is now it's getting so close to even. It's a coin flip. I'll put all my parlays, most of my wagering before the main event, and if I'm feeling, I'm feeling good and I got money in my bank account,
or if you need to get yourself out of trouble,
then I'll go all in. But either way, this is most definitely a very close fight. I love it. You could break down this fight all day. Unfortunately, there's just not enough time.
All right, Thatch by KO/TKO plus 170. If you
so
like
hard
him.
to put away.
I don't
Benson
really like
Henderson,
that, but what I do like is Benson Henderson by decision plus 280.
This is another one that's
so
iffy.
if he
it's
is
iffy,
going to get the
is.
win, I just feel as though that's the play is Benson Henderson. If you like Benson Henderson in this fight at almost 3-1 value, I think that's a pretty good look right there. But as we have been saying, this fight could really go either way. I'm slightly leaning towards the former lightweight champion, but I would not be surprised, as I have already said, if Brendan Thatch just completely ices him in the first 2 rounds. Let's move on into the featherweight division where we've got Max Blessed Holloway taking on Cole Miller. Max Holloway is a minus 380 favorite with the comeback on Miller plus 315. Who do you like?
I like Max Holloway big time here. Not only do I like Max Holloway to get the win, but I see him getting the stoppage here. There's no knock against Cole Miller. He's a good guy. He's very durable, very serviceable, gatekeeper-like guy in his own 145-pound run. Unfortunately, Max Holloway's a guy that's skyrocketing up the division rankings, and Cole Miller's a guy that's coming down. He hasn't fought in a while. He's going to have that ring rust on him.
What do you mean he's coming down? He's coming off of 2 straight wins.
Oh, yeah, quality
Sam
wins.
Cecilia,
quality
Andy
wins,
Ogle.
right? Well, Andy Ogle and Sam Cecilia, yes, he's also coming off a win. It didn't look too bad in that win, but, funny enough, also against Kara Corsani. Here's the thing, though. Yes, he's got a couple of wins, though, but I'm just not sold on him whatsoever. I really don't think so. Max Holloway, he's got power. He's got good submission game. He's really coming on his own here, and I think that he's going to get the stoppage here. I really do.
One thing that really jumped off the page at me in this fight is Cole Miller's reach advantage here.
Yes, I noticed that as
6
well.
inches,
Right,
man.
right.
That's pretty impressive. Now, let me be 100% frank. I think Max Holloway is going to win. There is a reason why Cole Miller was the original opponent that Conor McGregor was supposed to take on in Dublin. Oh, why? Yeah. Because they thought that Conor could light him up on the feet. And Max Holloway, he fought Conor McGregor. He looked, decent in doing it. Obviously,
he made it all 3 rounds.
Conor popped out his knee and all of that, but he looked pretty good. And ever since that fight, 4-fight winning streak, keeps looking better and better and better, more explosive. But he's going to have to get in, and this 1 year off that Miller's had, and when he was preparing for a fight with Conor McGregor, gotta hope that he's been working on a jab.
You know what?
If he has a jab, he's able to keep him on the outside.
Right.
He's able to control, get him up against the fence, take him down. Once he gets it on the ground, I think he's got a big advantage in the submission game.
No, see, this is where I disagree with you here, is that, one, I don't think he has the wrestling to physically drag Max Holloway to the ground. I mean, Max Holloway's wrestling defense, not so bad. But the thing is, I think that 5-inch reach advantage is actually going to get him in trouble. Because he's going to know in his head, oh, I've got a longer reach. He's probably going to be practicing his jab. And that's going to lead him to trying to stand with Max Holloway. And that's all I need. In the fight with Sam Cecilia, I remember Sam Cecilia talking very much so when he fought Cole Miller. He said, you know what? You know what my problem is I always rush in to get the kill. I'm too antsy, and I just need to calm down. And in that fight, Sam Cecilia is, 5'7"? He has no reach. He hits Cole Miller, and he wobbles him. Mm-hmm. And old Sam Cecilia would have rushed in. But new Sam Cecilia was telling himself, don't worry, you got him. And then he gets knocked out.
But new Sam Cecilia
He's
will
going
just
back
knock
in. He's
out
going back in.
Kara Corsani in
Exactly,
no time.
exactly. With Max Holloway here, I say it plays out the same way. He maybe gets hit with a couple jabs, sure, but he's going to hit Cole Miller with something. He's going to hurt Cole Miller. And when he does, he's going to put him away. That's the way I see the fight playing out. Obviously, it's an MMA fight. Anything could happen. But if he doesn't get it done in the first round, I see him getting it done in the second round. And as we saw with the Andre Feely fight, even in the third round, Max Holloway's dangerous. He's always there. He always fights to the end. Yes, it's in Colorado. Will that affect his cardio? Probably not, because he's so young. He just goes for days. I really like Max Holloway. I don't like minus 450 as a price tag. I don't like minus 400. I don't like what he's going to end up going at.
And this line has moved quite a bit.
It is moving. It's
what did
most
it
definitely
open
going
up
to move.
around like minus 350 or so?
It was minus 325, I believe, the first I bet for Holloway. And like I said, it's going to get continuously out of hand. But Max Holloway is a guy that I'm definitely putting my hat on. I like him here.
All right, coming up, we'll break down Mr. 2014, as I like to call him, and the Taz Mexican Devil is back in action, so keep it locked here to Bookie Beatdown. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. Right, we're going to move on to the welterweight division, where we've got Mr. 2014. My number 2 pick for fighter of the year in 2014, because he didn't really fight anybody, and Robbie Lawler had such a great year. But Neil Magny, 5 wins in 2014. This guy's career looked like it was pretty much all over, and then all of a sudden everything has seemed to click for this guy. The guy's an athletic specimen. He's got 81-inch reach, which is the longest reach in the welterweight division.
Welterweight division history.
He's really put everything together, and now he's taking on Kichi Kunamoto, who I think is relatively underrated. 3 straight wins. All of his fights have been wins in the UFC. Obviously, a win over Walsh, Daniel Sarafian, and a DQ win over Luis Dutra. That fight, he got DQ'd. He got DQ'd, and it was
he got knocked out. He's lucky.
He was in a lot of trouble. So take it for what it's worth in terms of that 3-fight winning streak.
Fair enough.
But the bookie obviously has taken nothing out of that 3-fight winning streak for one Kichi Kunamoto, as Neil Magny is a minus 550 favorite to come back on Kunamoto, plus 425. I used to like the days when nobody liked Neil Magny. He was always an underdog. I was betting on him.
Always good. Always good value.
2014. I think that's why he maybe was one of my my second best fighter of 2014. It's because I made so much money off of him. Everybody always underestimated him. He's always a 2-to-1 dog, and he was coming through every single fight against schlubs, against guys that now that we look at it, he should have been a massive favorite over top of a bunch of these guys. But minus 550, the era of making money off of Neil Magny is all over.
Well, you said so yourself. He's Mr. 2014. You didn't think you were going to get good odds on Mr. 2014, did you, Paul? Come on.
I thought against a guy who's on a 3-fight winning streak. All of his fights in the UFC, he's won. So,
including a split decision over Richard Walsh. Hello.
It's true. Is there any value on Kunamoto here, though? Is really what I want to ask you.
Well, you know what? I never like paying this type of value on anybody. I mean, listen, he's not a world beater by no means. It's hard to say Neil Magny's absolutely going to rout Kichi Kunamoto. And yeah, there's a little bit of value on Kunamoto, being that he's more of a ground specialist. We've seen his only good win was that win over Daniel Sarafian in Vancouver, where he got a quick first-round submission. And the fight with Luis Dutra, he gets knocked out because he's against the fence trying to pull him to the ground. He ends up eating some illegal elbows to the back of the head. So right away, we know he's got that bit of a ground game, and that's his way to win this fight. He needs to take Neil Magny down. Neil Magny got taken down by Alex Garcia, who had one knee effectively in place. The other one's blown out, and he's still getting takedowns. So if Kunamoto's going to win, he needs to get this fight to the ground. He needs to employ his ground skills. I just don't really see it happening. I mean, we got a guy in Neil Magny who's from Colorado, so the altitude's playing in his factor. He's actually quite strong. He's putting in very good wrestling workouts with Lester Bowling, who's a fantastic wrestling coach out in the Colorado
and he's learned how to utilize his body and his reach and everything.
That's the main thing, is that even as Robin Black pointed out, he's out landing opponents 1.8 strikes for every strike that they land. That's almost doubling up on them. And as Robin says, if you hit him 100 times, he hits you 180 times. And that really adds up. I'm not comparing him to Nick Diaz by no means.
No.
But it's that same style of, if I hit you 200 times, they're not the most powerful punches, but they add up, my friend, and they take it out of you. And that's really his way to win here. I would like to say there's better value on betting him within the distance, but I don't even know that he necessarily puts Kunamoto away.
No, when he puts people away, and actually that leads in perfectly to what I was going to say, is when I'm going to lay minus 550 on somebody, I have to be confident that he's going to ice that person in the first round or in the second. He's gonna finish the fight, and so that you're not. Think back to like Mark Bocek versus Mike Delatorre.
Or even Chris Wade, his last fight. He was a minus 550, and he's just trying to out-wrestle a guy against the fence. You get very scared.
When you're laying that much juice, you want to see it finished very early, because you'll add it onto parlays, to bring it back to maybe a closer to even. You would grab like Magny, Borg, and and maybe Holloway and parlay them 3 ways and hope that all 3 of the big favorites come through. Well, when you're going to decisions, and we know what happens when fights go to decisions in mixed martial arts, anything can happen. And that's the problem with Neil Magny as this big of a favorite. I don't think he should be this big of a favorite over really anybody in the division because he doesn't have that finishing instinct. Now, I know 2 of those 5 wins were TKO win, I believe, and a submission win. Either way, it's like he was losing the first round in that fight against De Lima, who we'll talk about later. And yeah, like, I don't know. Minus 550. I can't be involved in this unless I'm parlaying him with my main man, the Taz Mexican Ray Borg, minus 650 favorite over Chris Kalades, plus 475. I like Borg. I liked him a lot more last week when I bet him. I think I was like minus 400.
Right.
And I parlayed. Actually, I did parlay him with I believe Neil Magny. And it was
if you want to bet the big favorites,
still wasn't a great
parlay
price.
A couple together.
Now that it's minus 650, makes me pretty nervous. We've seen Kalades already. He comes in against a highly touted prospect,
Paddy Houlihan,
and ruins the whole show. He did
parlay
that
buster, parlay buster,
huge parlay buster.
But he was a similar underdog in that fight. He's a big underdog.
Nobody even knew who he was coming into this fight. So I know I have been impressed by Borg. I thought his loss to Dustin Ortiz looked great in that fight.
Great.
And it's debatable, it's arguable that maybe he not got robbed, but that he could have won on some people's scorecards. And but the problem is you got that guy. The killer,
minus
the
600.
parlay buster. You think Chris Kalades is going to be busting any parlays this weekend, or you like Borg?
Yeah, I really like Borg. I don't like the price tag. Minus 600 is, again, it's like,
minus
you know
650
what?
now.
I mean, let's say I just liked Borg. Let's say he was the one guy I really liked on this card, right? Would I put $600 on him to make $100? No, I would never do that. So that's a little bit iffy. But, however, do I think Borg wins here? Yes. And do I think he's one of the locks of the card, so to speak? Yes. So if you're in just a survivor-type pool with you and your buddies, and you're picking just one guy to get through, odds don't matter.
I got first pick in our company's
Ray Borg
survival
is
pool.
that guy. And nothing against Chris Kalades. Chris Kalades is very durable. He's never been finished, so don't think you're going to get additional value by betting Borg for stoppage. The issue with Chris Kalades here is that being that he's from Nova Scotia and he's training at Fit Plus MMA, he's yet to branch off and really fully develop as a fighter. His only loss against Malcolm Gordon under the Bellator banner, he was out-grappled by Malcolm Gordon, who then lost his next fight. And actually, funny story for the viewers out there. We tried to get Chris Kalades to fight on Substance Cage Combat 2.0 in Toronto. He's going to fight a local fighter by the name of Adrian Woolley. Adrian Woolley, at the time, had a record of 8 wins and 3 losses. Chris Kalades is undefeated at the time with 6-0. We presented in front of the Ontario Commission. The Ontario Commission says, this Chris Kalades guy is a bum. He's not good enough to fight on your regional MMA card against Adrian Woolley.
Yep.
What ends up happening? Adrian Woolley goes to Nova Scotia.
They end up fighting a few months later. Yeah.
Chris Kalades beats him. Now Chris Kalades is in the UFC. So the guy that wasn't good enough to fight with Ontario is now in the UFC. And Adrian Woolley, who is good enough to also fight in the UFC, is still on the regional scene. So it's funny how people have really made a career of underestimating this guy. But to get back on track here, I'm going to underestimate him here and say he does not have a chance. He just doesn't have the grappling prowess to keep up with Borg. When he beat Houlihan, he used his grappling. But Houlihan's a guy doesn't really have great grappling. I mean, he's kind of been exposed in his own UFC run.
He kind of has.
He can get on your back.
He kind of has a little bit of everything. His grappling isn't that bad when he. Well,
Ray Borg is a
his
tyrant.
grappling didn't look that bad against Shane Howell, but Shane Howell is kind of the guy that they throw to people for you to get back on track in the flyweight division right now as it stands. And let's be honest, Shane Howell probably won't last very much longer in that division as it is as well. Do you think Borg gets it done inside the distance?
Yeah, but that's the thing. I can't really bet against Kalades and say, I think he's going to get finished, because fact of the matter is he's never been finished. So how can you just assume, he's going to get choked out, he's going to get beat? I like Ray Borg. I really do. But he's such a young kid. He really hasn't developed to his own right. With the altitude, maybe he burns himself out. Maybe he tries too hard in the first round of the finish and he has to kind of save a little bit of gas in the second or third. There's a lot of unknowns here that I actually think Chris Kalades survives the decision. And I haven't seen the odds quite on it yet, but closer to fight time, I will actually go and look, what are the odds of simply the fight going the distance? Because I think there might be some little bit of value there. Chris Kalades is a durable Canadian guy. I think he maybe is able to just lose the decision after 15.
And it's the flyweight division. But there's some
good flyweights, and Ray Borg's one of them.
No, I know.
He gets on your back.
I mean, it's the flyweight division, basically any fight in the flyweight division. Very likely can go to decision at any given time.
Yeah, I am interested in seeing that one. But again, for minus 600, it's like, oh, I really like Borg, I really do, but that's a lot of cake to put up.
Don't go anywhere. More Bookie Beatdown coming at you when we return. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy here with Cody Safdie. All right, we're going to move on to the lightweight division where we've got Kevin, the Motown Phenom Lee, taking on Michel Trator. I believe that means tractor. Prazeres.
Yeah, you always read it as like traitor. What did he do? You're like, oh wait, there's missing an I.
What did he stop?
It's Portuguese.
Did he stop training in Brazil? Maybe. Either way, we got Kevin Lee as a minus 165 favorite with the comeback on Prazeres plus 145. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I like Lee. I was hoping that this fight would be a lot closer to even. When it opened, it was actually closer to even, and now it appears that people are going with Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's got a very good high school wrestling pedigree, and I know high school wrestling, a lot of people are quick to shame that off, but very athletic and very young. And this is a young guy with good morals, good work ethic, a guy that takes care of the majority of his family. I really like Kevin Lee. What I like most about him in this fight in particular is the fact that it's in Colorado and the fact that Prazeres is very, very good, but he's so muscular that he really takes a lot out of him in order to keep up this high pace. And we seen him when he debuted. He lost to Paulo Thiago. Ugh, that's never good. But short notice, and he took it at 170.
Yep.
But he was big for 170. And now at 155, he's very big. And when we see him when he fought Jesse Ronson, he got tired, man. He got really tired in that third round. And I know Kevin Lee also got a split decision win over Jesse Ronson, but that was a much better fight. And I think that's how this one plays out. Prazeres will get tired as the fight goes on. The young kid and Kevin Lee will keep coming. He'll break him down.
And actually, if you look at it, you got his wins over, or Prazeres' wins over Ronson and Tysonov, strikers.
Yes.
Strikers, right? Now he's going up against Kevin Lee with a good wrestling pedigree, and he's a young kid who keeps getting better. He's been spending some time at Rufus Sport working on his striking skills. He's going to take a 10-inch reach advantage into the cage in this fight as well, which is massive for him. You don't really want to get into, if you get your back against the fence against Prazeres, he's very good at scooping out your legs, taking you down, more or less stalling, but that's his path to victory. He's able to do against Tysonov. He's able to do against Ronson. I don't think he's going to be able to employ that type of strategy against one Kevin Lee. We saw Kevin Lee against Ally Quinta. Now, he lost that fight, but he was able to take Ally Quinta down. He was able to control him.
People had that fight as a draw because they had the second as a 10-8 because he had his back the whole time.
For so long, and he almost submitted him. Yeah. So definitely, I like Kevin Lee here too, and I believe minus 165. That's actually a really good price on him. So this is the type of fight, though. If I look at it, one of the props that I really looked at was going to decision. Minus 195.
I like that one too. When I first thought
jumped
about
off the page. I know it's like 2-1 or whatever, but it just seems so likely that this one is going to go to decision. Both of these guys haven't been finished in the UFC.
Well, also, with Kevin Lee, if you're not putting away John Tuck, which I believe is his last win, yeah, things are not looking good for you for getting a stoppage. I'm just a tad bit weary on the whole stoppage being for most of this card because it's in Colorado. I know I keep being a dead horse with this one, but that altitude is going to change. Yeah. If Prazeres is okay in the first round and, he's tired in the second round, if he's completely gassed in the third and he's just getting some light ground and pound but he's not defending himself and they call it off as a third round TKO, damn it, you know what I mean? The odds are good enough on this one just straight up that I'm going to avoid the prop bet on it, although that is a good line. I think I'm just going to avoid it, and I'm going to go with Kevin Lee just straight up. And I do like him in this one. So Prazeres is not to be overlooked. Like I said, I wish it was maybe a little closer, but I got to go with Kevin Lee.
Both of us are on Kevin Lee here. We move on to the welterweight division, I believe. Nope, sorry, middleweight division. My bad. We've got... and we were talking about guys that potentially could gas out at high altitude. Well, we've got Patrick Walsh taking on Dan Kelly. Dan Kelly, from Tough fame, he was the old guy with bad knees. Looked okay in some spots. Looked great in his submission win over Luke Zachrich in the first round. But the real question is he going to be able to hold up over the course of 3 rounds at high altitude? The line makers do not think he will, as Patrick Walsh is a minus 170 favorite here with the comeback on Daniel Kelly plus 150. You have a little bit of a personal history with one Patrick Walsh, so why don't you tell our audience that?
Yeah, Pat Walsh, another substance cage combat veteran. He fought on the first show, and first of all, class act. If you've ever met the guy, Super
He
good.
seemed like a
dude.
really nice guy in the tough house.
Super good dude. Really, really enjoyed Pat Walsh. Pat Walsh, however, and he won the fight for substance, and he's able to use his wrestling, and that's what I really took from him. When he fought for substance, he fought Todd Stout. He was able to just take him down, and what he does is once he takes you down, he moves to side control. Once he moves to side control, he locks up the Kimura. Once he locks up the Kimura, he torques it. He generally gets the sub. If he doesn't get the sub, he continues to work the same repetitive thing until he gets the fight.
It's not pretty with Patrick Walsh.
It's not pretty. It's not pretty. And even when he's striking, okay, he throws a shoveling left hook to close the distance, to take you down, to move to side control, to take your arm, to Kimura you. He sticks to the exact same thing. And then what I took from him in Toronto is the man has zero cardio. None. He's a one-round fighter, and then he gets tired. But he can take a hell of a punch. So if he wins 2 rounds, he'll just coast out the third. Dan Kelly is a guy who we saw him also on The Ultimate Fighter, Team Australia versus Team Canada. Not looking good. He's a 4-time Olympian, and that sounds very impressive. Guy went to the Olympics 4 times. That's going to say something about your age. You're obviously quite old if you've gone that many times.
Is it wrestler or judo?
Judo.
Judo. Will his judo be able to negate that wrestling, or the very rudimentary wrestling of Patrick Walsh? Though?
Yeah, you see, and that's another thing. A lot of people think rudimentary. He was actually an alternate on Ohio State, which is one of the best schools for wrestling. The fact that he was an alternate means he was accepted in the program anyways.
I didn't mean rudimentary.
No, I know what you mean.
I know what you mean.
It's not a 4-time Olympian.
It's a simple game plan that he comes in with.
Yeah, I would assume it'd be hard to take Pat Walsh down because he's a little shorter. He is very stocky, and he has that wrestling pedigree. And with Dan Kelly, one thing that I'll never live up for this really is that he's a 4-time Olympian. He's a judo black belt. He's one of the most decorated judo players in Australia, in Australian history, I'm sure. When he was on The Ultimate Fighter, I believe his fight was who lost to Elias in the finals?
Sheldon Westcott.
Sheldon Westcott takes him down, no problem, and subs him, no problem. And that really stuck out of my mind. How did Sheldon Westcott take down this guy so easily? But what it was is he's a little bit older, and his knees were banged up, and maybe he wasn't expecting it. And when you bulldoze a guy down, sometimes their judo's a little upright. I expect Pat Walsh to do the same thing. I expect him to get the takedown. I expect him to pound him out. I expect him to get a sub. There is an infinite possibility that this fight makes it out of the first round. Pat Walsh is cooked. Because now that he's in Colorado, his cardio is going to be worse than it was in Toronto.
But isn't 38-year-old Dan Kelly going to be probably cooked as well? This could be very ugly.
This fight is hands down.
This
is going to be the equivalent. It's going to be the equivalent to when Mark Hunt fought Ben Rothwell in Colorado. And it was just like, wow, it's 2 zombies just walking forward. I like Pat Walsh here, I really do. For minus 170, once again, I wish it was closer to even because it's a bit of a pick-em. However, I do not see this fight going the distance. I could not ever see this fight going the distance. So I am certainly going to wait for that fight inside the distance line to come up and bet that very heavily because I just don't see it happening.
All right, coming up, we will break down the rest of our more of the prelims when Bookie Beatdown returns, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, off we go to the featherweight division where we have Nick the Carney Lentz taking on Levon Makashvili. Nick Lentz is a massive favorite at minus 440 with the comeback on Makashvili plus 350. Nick Lentz may be the most unlucky guy in this division right now. He's supposed to have a rematch with Oliveira. Oliveira didn't make weight, and then the next day had to pull out of the fight. Then he was supposed to fight Thiago Tavares on this very card, and Tavares dropped out. Luckily for him, because he hasn't fought in almost 10 months at this point. Luckily for him, they were able to find Levon Makashvili on short notice to come in, like a week and a half. And the bookie likes him obviously with minus 440 favorite. Makashvili's not too bad though. His only loss was against Popo Bazea, former Bellator fighter.
5 rounds.
5 rounds, and it was a majority decision loss. And then he avenged it in his very next fight with a unanimous decision victory.
3 rounds.
3 rounds.
Yeah, fair enough.
Either way, this is going to be 3 rounds. I think this line is almost suggested by the fact that nobody knows who the hell this guy is. But I don't think it's too far of a stretch to think that he could potentially beat the Carney here.
Not a far stretch.
Nick Lentz is not great on the feet. If Nick Lentz cannot take him down and control him on the ground, I could see Makashvili winning here. I don't think this is not the worst value on the card at plus 350. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's more of a stay away just because Nick Lentz, a lot of the time when you get a short nose replacement, it's just a foregone conclusion that you have to be a heavy favorite. So I think a lot of the times, I mean, this 450, is Nick Lentz really the guy that you're thinking is that big of a favorite? And against Makashvili, yes, he's taking on short notice, but this isn't the 90s no-holds-bar era. These guys are ready all the time. They're training all the time. So I don't think he's going to be in awful shape. If I'm Nick Lentz, and I'm thinking, okay, Charles Oliveira is a top 10 guy. I'd like to fight him. Thiago Tavares is a well-known name. I'd like to fight him. Levon Makashvili, you might get a tough fight as well.
Yep.
But nobody knows this guy. And if you lose this, you're out of the rankings. There goes your Reebok money, pal. Like, that's big.
Yep.
I'm sure that's probably weighing on the back of his mind, but all he's telling himself is, I got to get the win. If you're Makashvili, there's no pressure.
And what he's saying to himself is, I have 35 fights. This guy only has less than 10 fights in his career.
Yeah.
I have so much more experience. I'm at a better gym than him. I have all of these other things. So there are a lot of things, which would reflect this type of line for Nick Lentz. But again, it's like almost when I was talking about Neil Magny earlier. I want to have, if I'm going to be laying this type of juice on a guy, I want to have a guy who's going to finish early. And Nick Lentz has never really shown a propensity to do that.
If Nick's going to finish it right, maybe he slaps on a guillotine or something. But I can't gamble on the fact that Makashvili's never been finished. So I can't say, he'll get knocked out or he'll get submitted. I know he's a grappler. I know he's a wrestler. We've seen a couple fights of his. He's got a hell of a right hand if he can land it, but he doesn't set it up particularly well. So I don't see him flat out knocking Nick Lentz, not unless Lentz is far too over-aggressive and runs into the right hand. But that is a possibility. And if he can't take Makashvili down, which is a possibility, then what happens? And let's say Makashvili happens to get on top. How good is Lentz off his back? Not bad, actually. But how's good Makashvili on top? There's a lot of unknowns here. And unknowns are well and good if you're near even. But when you're minus 450, I don't like ifs and or buts. And so I see what you're coming from. There's definitely a little bit of value on Makashvili here, but he's the underdog for a reason. We don't really know much about him. I'm avoiding it, but I can see a little bit of action. And maybe you want to bet this fight just to go the distance and bet that this guy who's never been finished before might be able to last a decision against a guy not exactly known for putting away his opponents.
Both of us are saying pass on the Carney versus Makashvili here, but I'm saying if you're a little bit desperate or you like to live dangerously, maybe put some on the Georgian Makashvili here. We move on to the lightweight division where we've got Efrain Escudero taking on Rodrigo Lima. Pretty much a straight pick'em here with Escudero the slight favorite at minus 115, Rodrigo Lima minus 105. Interesting fact about this, Rodrigo Lima took his fight against Neil Magny, which he lost in the second round, on short notice at 170. Now he's moving down to 155. Probably, we'll see. This is the type of fight that if you do like Lima, you should probably wait until the guys hit the scales, see how it looks. We're only a week or so off of, or a couple weeks off of Gastelum and John Lineker, both failing on the scales, which gave us completely different results. But it's always nice when somebody's moving down to assess that. I don't have a great feel on this one here. I don't think either one of these guys is to be trusted. With my money, do you have a guy that you like in this fight?
Yeah, I feel you with the cannot be trusted. That's really the knock on Efrain Escudero is that if you look at his Zuffa career, I mean, he's lost like 5 in a row. He hasn't won in a while. Has he won fights in a while? Yeah, sure, he wins fights, but predominantly not inside of the UFC, and that's a little bit worrisome. Let me ask you this right here. Who's the worst Ultimate Fighter winner? Is it Colton Smith, Efrain Escudero, or I suppose Travis Lutter could be thrown in that mix? But do you see what I mean? Efrain Escudero is busted.
I wouldn't say Escudero because at least he's in the organization right now.
For the third time.
Whereas Colton Smith got cut.
Colton Smith could work his way back, and at least Travis Lutter, fought. He didn't fight for the belt. He missed weight. But at least he fought some good guys. But back to the original point here.
He beat Felipe Nova, and Nova was going to be the next Anderson Silva.
Well, Escudero was supposed to be really good. I mean, there was high hopes for the guy. There really was. I mean, I believe he beat your boy Cole Miller, and then it was, sky's the limit for this guy. But unfortunately, he never really
my boy Cole Miller?
I'm just kidding. A 155-pound Cole Miller.
There we go.
Efrain Escudero, the knock on him has kind of always been that he's been a bit of a lazy guy, that he's not really the hardest worker. They kicked him out of the UFC the first first time around. He himself had trouble making weight. He went to the regional scene, didn't do good in the regional scene, came back. He's lost fights against guys like Dakota Cochran. It's not Jorge Patino's like 42 beat him. It's not exactly a great dynamic. The fact that he came back to the UFC was because he was taking a fight on short notice his last time out, and once again didn't look great against Leo Santos. So there's a lot of things you have to factor in. However, I am actually going Efren Escudero here. I cannot trust Rodrigo de Lima, and I think, and I've been saying this all podcast long, the fact that they're in Colorado, de Lima's going to get tired. We saw it against Neil Magny. He won the first round.
He got gassed at 170. Now he's cutting another 15 pounds. So, yes, this definitely factors in.
He's cutting the extra weight. He's been known to gas. He's fighting at a high altitude. And against Efren Escudero, who I've mentioned is kind of lazy and doesn't have great work ethic and doesn't have the greatest cardio, he's a 30-fight veteran. And he knows how to make it the distance. He knows how to get through tough situations. When we watched against Santos, and I had money on him, he dropped Santos hard in the second round. He just didn't really have the gas to follow it up because it was on short notice. This is one, full training camp for him. And two, he must know that not only is his job on the line, the UFC's brought him back 3 times now. They're not going to bring him back ever again. He's going to be fighting on the regional scene for the rest of his life. He really needs this win, man.
All right, Cody likes Efren Escudero to get it done here. I'm saying let's just pass on this one. Neither one of these guys is to be trusted with your hard-earned money. Hopefully we'll find somebody in this next fight between Chas Skelly and Jim Ehlers that is worth your money. We got Chas Skelly as a minus 210 favorite with the comeback on Jim Ehlers plus 175. Who do you got?
Once again, I hate to go for the favorite, but I got Chas Skelly. It's 2 grapplers trading off here, and Jim Ehlers looked very suspect in his debut in the UFC, whereas Chas Skelly is just getting better every time out. I really like the whole team takedown vibe with the striking, the wrestling, the fact that you have people that are really dedicated. And Chas Skelly, we've talked about him. He's getting better. I like him here.
Chas Skelly's only loss as well is against Mirsad Bektic. That is the type of
majority decision.
That is the type of fight that is 2 high-end prospects that you usually don't see those guys matched up against each other, but because of short notice and blah 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 blah,
many guys in the roster.
They ended up, fighting, early on in their career. But these are both guys that probably could really make some noise at 145 in the future. And obviously against Ninamaki, he out-grappled against a guy who's highly touted for his grappling ability. And Soriano, he was able to do exactly what he had to do. Take him to the ground,
that he had good game planning. The ability to be like, oh, I'm getting punched, no problem. Get my underhooks, get my takedown, take on top of him, take the back, ride him out, win the round. That's good game planning. I definitely like that. Jim Ehlers, he's got all the skills. We've watched him many times in the Cage Wars organization where he was the featherweight champ. But unfortunately, he relies heavily on his grappling ability. He really does. And against an NAIA junior college champion in Chas Skelly, I just don't see it happening. I don't see him getting him down. I see him getting tired. Skelly just keeps working the way he always keeps working, and I think that results in a victory for him. At least I think so.
Chas Skelly at that team takedown gym with Johnny Hendricks, with Roschwoldt, and and more great wrestlers that we don't even know their names yet, but we'll see them probably
pretty recruited.
Soon. Exactly. So I really like Chas Skelly here as well, and minus 210. Not too shabby. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll break down the rest of UFC Fight Night 60 from Broomfield, Colorado, when Bookie Beatdown returns. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, we're going to move on to the flyweight division, where we got a couple guys here, top 10 guys, can't get any love for whatever reason. We got Zach Makovsky taking on Tim Elliott. Complete pick'em here. Both of the fighters can be had for minus 110. I'll just throw it right at you. Who do you got?
Yeah, you know what? I've been going back and forth with this one for a while, but unfortunately, when looking at this card, I've taken most of the favorites, and that's very unlike me.
Now you don't have a favorite here, though.
I know, and sadly...
Makovsky did open as the favorite in this fight, but as we move closer... And now this could change by the time even you're listening to this right now, the viewers, that is. That could change, and maybe Elliott could be the favorite or Makovsky. I think it's going to go down pretty much close to even. As it stands right now, minus 110 each person. But, Elliott was the underdog to start with.
And I liked him because I liked Makovsky initially, but it's like, okay, who are my underdogs in this card that could win? And when I looked at it, Tim Elliott was most definitely one of those guys. He is very, very wiry. The way he moves, he's kind of got like that Dominic Cruz-esque movement with his feet.
He's almost like 125 Keith Jardine.
just very
strange, herky-jerky.
But I remember a story when they're like, "Well, where'd you get your style?" He's like, "Well, I was in the gym and I was goofing off and I was pretending to be Dominic Cruz and I was moving." And then he's like, it started as a joke and it started to work and it kind of got better. And you see him move and he's highly unorthodox, but he's a very, very, very accomplished wrestler as well. It's hard to get the guy down. Against the Joseph Benavidez in the fight, he was winning. Then he gets taken down and gets subbed. Zach Makovsky also making a lot of improvements, but when he wins, he needs to get you down. He needs to just control you and use his top game. That's kind of his best path for victory. One thing I'll never, and I'm sure he's made a lot of improvements, but one thing that really sticks in my mind is his last Bellator defeat. He fought Anthony Leone, who's a very wiry, very scrappy wrestler type guy. And he actually lost a split decision to Leone, although in my mind it should have been a unanimous decision to Leone, who just beat him in the scrambles, was able to use the wrestling to keep the fight standing, take him down a little bit, and work him. Zach Makovsky is a good wrestler, but that doesn't mean he can't get taken down, or that doesn't mean he has great takedown defense. We've seen Yusir Formiga get him down and really start to throw so much information and stats at you, but that's how this one might go. Tim Elliott, if he can keep the fight standing, he's a better striker, and if he needs to, he might be able to take Makovsky down as well. I actually like Tim Elliott here to get the decision.
I actually like Tim Elliott in this one as well. Who has he really lost to? He's lost to Benavidez, a perennial top number 2 guy in the division.
And he was doing good.
Number 3 if you bring Dodson into the equation. And Ali Bogatinov, who ended up getting a title shot.
Yeah, and Ali Bogatinov never got tested pre-fight for that Tim Elliott fight. So who knows what would have happened.
And he has a win over Gaudneau. And Gaudneau's a pretty accomplished wrestler in his own right.
And listen, all jokes aside,
I do like Elliott here.
I bet Tim Elliott in that fight against Ali Bogatinov. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking to myself, if you lose this fight, you've lost it on your own. Because he had all the tools, he had all the skills to win that fight. And he opted to stand with a guy that was only throwing a power right hand. And that was a stupid move. He loses his next fight, winning, and then he makes a stupid move. I'm really hoping that his coaching staff have sat down, that he's watched the tape, that he's more grounded for this fight, because Zach Makovsky is a very, very good game planner. But Tim Elliott, if he's firing on all cylinders, he's a good bet. I actually like him here.
All right, both of us are on Tim Elliott in this fight. And finally, we'll move on to the curtain jerker. We've got James Muntasri as a minus 225 favorite, taking on Cody Pfister at plus 185. Flat out, I like Muntasri here. He took his fight against Joe Ellenberger on really short notice. He gassed in the second half of that fight, and that's maybe where it slipped away. A lot of people thought that Muntasri actually beat Joe Ellenberger.
Lost people,
in that fight as well. Cody Pfister, frankly, the level of competition that he's fought to get into the UFC is not nearly at the level as James Muntasri, former RFA guy, and obviously he's taken on Joe Ellenberger as well. He's fought the better guys. He's looked good against the better guys, so I like Muntasri all day long. And minus 225, I think that's a really good price.
Yeah, I don't know. Cody's a great name for fighters to have. Unfortunately, this Pfister guy is really going to make us look bad here. First of all, he's very young, but the fact that he's taking on short notice, he's like a couple weeks ago when we were talking about that Anthony Christodoulou guy who fought Maribak Taisumov. And when he come in there, he had a good record. He seemed good on paper, but when you saw him in the ring, he was noticeably out of place.
Yep.
And he got beat up bad. I'm expecting similar things from Cody Pfister here. He's probably not as bad. I mean, I don't think anybody can be as bad as Anthony Christodoulou, but Cody Pfister, I don't really see the clear-cut path to victory here. I mean, he's a grinding type. I'm just going to try to push you around, bully you, throw my hand, throw the harder than you throw your hand. But unfortunately, against Muntasri, a guy that's trained at a very high level, and a guy that has a very, very high degree black belt in Taekwondo, I think it's just going to be too flashy. Too much for Cody Pfister to think about. He's going to second-guess himself. He won't close the distance properly. This is Muntasri's fight to win and to finish.
All right, both of us are on James Muntasri to get it done in the first fight of UFC Fight Night 60. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll give you our picks of the week, so keep it locked to Bookie Beatdown. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, we are just about out of time, but we wouldn't be a complete show if we didn't give you our picks of the week. Now, we don't go through the card and be like, I think Max Holloway's going to win, or I think Ray Borg is going to win. Of course, those guys are likely going to win. There's that's the reason why they're such big favorites. But we scour through the odds, and we find something that around maybe minus 200 to plus money is kind of the range that we're looking at for you. So, Cody, why don't you get us started?
I'd like to give you plus money, but that's just not that kind of card this time around. So we're going to go with minus 225 James Mutasri. And Paul, you know I do this from time to time. It's not necessarily that Mutasri is going to win the fight, as much as Cody Pfister is going to lose the fight, and that would make one possible winner James Mutasri. Better skills, better stand-up, better training camp, better gym, more athletic. Didn't really look that bad against Ellenberger, to be honest with you. I got him here.
And it almost sounds like you are describing my pick of the week, which is Chaz Skelly.
Ooh.
Better gym, better credentials. You know, he's a better prospect all around. He's been getting better every single fight. He's only lost to Mirsad Bektic, another guy who is going to make some noise in the 145-pound weight class. So Chaz Skelly, I like him to utilize his wrestling and get the job done against Jim Ehlers. But that's all the time that we have for now. Hope you enjoyed the show. So for Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.